I found Harper's diary tucked behind her 8th grade yearbook, and my whole world shattered in purple ink. I put the pills in her smoothie. Just a little. My sister, the golden child, the one they toast to every holiday, poisoned me. And Mama and Daddy knew. They knew. The room started spinnin', but I wasn't finna faint. I was finna make 'em all pay. My hands gripped the floral pattern journal so tight the spine cracked, and I could smell everything all at once. Harper's vanilla perfume lingering on her clothes, the fabuloso Mama used to mop these hardwood floors every Saturday morning, and something else, something bitter like betrayal aged in silence. I was sitting in Harper's pristine Cascade Heights bedroom, her trophies gleaming on the shelves like little gold lies, each one a reminder of the life she built on top of my collapsed one. The house was empty, my family up in the mountains posting pictures of pine trees and fake smiles while I sat here holding the truth they buried 11 years ago. My joints were screaming that deep bone ache that never really left, but the pain in my chest was worse because it wasn't my body breaking down this time, it was my entire history rewriting itself in real time. And I knew right then that the girl who rolled into this house 2 hours ago wasn't the same one about to roll out. But to understand how I ended up on this floor with my sister's confession in my lap and murder in my heart, we gotta rewind 10 months back to when I still believed my pain was just bad luck, and not a crime scene. I was working at the Healing Arts Collective in East Atlanta, a little nonprofit where I taught art therapy to kids dealing with chronic illness, and I was good at it, real good, because I knew exactly what it felt like when your body became a prison and nobody believed the bars were real. I'd spent the morning helping a 12-year-old girl named Destiny sketch her pain as a thunderstorm, watching her face relax as she turned suffering into something she could control on paper. And I remember thinking that this right here was enough, that I didn't need my family's approval or their money or even their love because I had purpose. My studio apartment in Greenbrier wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with accessibility bars I installed myself and a view of the MARTA station, but it was mine, paid for with my own freelance graphic design work and the small salary from the collective. Harper was barely a thought back then, just an occasional text on holidays with a happy Thanksgiving sis, followed by radio silence, and Mama and Daddy were the same, polite distance wrapped in the excuse of being busy, which I'd accepted as the price of being the daughter who required too much and delivered too little, or so I thought. The shift started on a Wednesday in late spring when Daddy called me out of nowhere. His voice doing that fake warm thing it did when he needed something but didn't want to admit it. "Imani, baby, we need to talk about the family estate," he said, and I could hear Mama in the background telling him to put me on speaker, which he did. And suddenly I was in a three-way conversation I never asked for about wills and assets and legacy planning. They wanted to meet for Sunday dinner at the house, the big one in Cascade Heights with the circular driveway and the lawn service that came every Thursday. And something in my spirit shifted because they never invited me to Sunday dinner. Not since I was 19 and overheard Daddy tell his golf buddy that I was a financial drain with no return on investment. But I said yes anyway because part of me, that stupid hopeful part one tried to kill off years ago, thought maybe they'd finally see me, maybe Harper going off to her marketing job at Coca-Cola and moving into her midtown high-rise meant they had space to remember I existed. I should have known better, should have listened to the way my stomach dropped when Mama said, "Wear something nice," like I was a guest and not their daughter, but I went anyway, rolling up to that house in my modified Honda with the hand controls, wearing my good blouse and the anxiety I'd been swallowing since I was 11. Sunday dinner was a setup from the jump. I could feel it the second I rolled through the door and saw the table set with the good china. The stuff Mama only brought out for performances, not family. Harper was already there looking like she stepped out of an Instagram ad, her lace front laid to the gods, her dress probably cost more than my rent, and she hugged me with that same energy she always had, like she was doing charity work just by touching me. Daddy blessed the food with one of his deacon prayers, all King James cadence and no real feeling. And Mama served her famous baked mac and cheese, the one with the 5-cheese blend she refused to share the recipe for, and we ate in the kind of silence that felt like waiting, like the whole room was holding its breath for something ugly to drop. It dropped during dessert when Daddy cleared his throat and said they'd made a decision about the estate, that after careful consideration and consultation with their financial advisor, they were leaving everything to Harper because she's built a stable future, and you, sweetheart, you've needed so much from us over the years. Mama nodded like this was reasonable, like erasing me from their legacy was just smart accounting, and Harper, my sister, the one who used to sneak me snacks when I was too sick to come to dinner, just sat there quiet, not saying a word, and that's when I knew this wasn't new information to her. She'd known, maybe helped plan it, and the betrayal tasted worse than any pain my body ever gave me. I left that dinner table without saying goodbye. Just rolled myself out the front door while they called after me with weak protests that sounded more annoyed than apologetic. And I drove back to my apartment with tears I refused to let fall because crying felt like giving them something they didn't deserve. My best friend Josie came over that night with Popeyes and let me rant for 3 hours straight. And somewhere around hour 2, when I was describing the look on Harper's face, that guilty silence, Josie said something that stuck with me. "Imani, people don't act that shady unless they hiding something bigger than greed." I didn't know what she meant then, but the words planted a seed because she was right. Harper's silence wasn't just complicity, it was cover. And I started thinking about all the strange things I'd ignored over the years. Like how Mama used to cry in the bathroom after my diagnosis, not sad crying but scared crying, the kind that comes with secrets. Like how Daddy never let me see my full medical records, always saying the doctors handled it and I should just focus on treatment. Like how Uncle Dean, Daddy's brother who worked as a sports medicine doctor, stopped coming to family events right after I got sick and nobody ever explained why. They just said he got busy and moved to Florida, but what kind of busy makes you ghost your whole family? I spent the next 2 months digging, requesting my medical files from Grady Memorial, reading through pediatric notes I'd never seen, and that's when I found it, a small notation from my initial diagnosis that mentioned suspected exposure to corticosteroid compounds and recommended investigating prior ingestion. The word exposure did something to my brain because it meant this wasn't random, wasn't genetic, wasn't just my body turning on itself for no reason. It meant something got into me, something that triggered the autoimmune cascade that stole my childhood. I thought back to the weeks before I got sick, trying to remember anything unusual, and that's when the memory surfaced, hazy but real. Harper making me a smoothie, pink and sweet, insisting I drink it even though I said I wasn't hungry, and me throwing up an hour later so violently Mama had to put me in the bathtub because I couldn't make it to the toilet. I'd forgotten about that day, buried it under 11 years of doctor visits and pain management, but now it glowed like a neon sign pointing to the truth, and I knew I had to go back to that house, had to search Harper's room while they were gone, because if there was evidence, if there was proof that this wasn't fate but a choice someone made, then everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie, and the real question wasn't why I got sick. It was why they let me believe it was my fault. I found Harper's diary tucked behind her 8th grade yearbook, and sitting there on her bedroom floor with the truth in my hands, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage exactly, more like clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop making excuses for people who never deserved them. The journal had more entries, pages of a 10-year-old's jealousy spiraling into something darker, and one line gutted me. "Mara can't walk good now, everyone's so worried. I didn't mean it. I just wanted her to stop being so needy. I didn't mean it." But she did mean it, and what's worse, Mama and Daddy found out. I knew they did because the entry stopped abruptly and the next page had been torn out, the jagged edge still visible, which meant someone read this, someone new, and instead of getting me proper treatment or telling the truth, they chose Harper's future over mine. I took pictures of every page with my phone, my hands steadier than they'd been in years because purpose steadies you better than any medication. And I knew exactly what I was about to do, not out of revenge but out of something cleaner, justice with receipts. Before I went to a lawyer, I did something the old story won't tell you about, something that showed them exactly who they'd underestimated all these years. I'd kept copies of every medical bill they'd ever complained about, every insurance statement, every receipt for equipment and treatment spanning 11 years, and I cross-referenced it with their tax returns that Harper had stupidly left in Daddy's home office, publicly accessible because he was so proud of his charitable deductions he framed them. Turns out they'd been writing me off, literally, claiming my medical expenses as disability-related tax deductions while simultaneously telling me I was a financial burden, which meant they'd profited off my pain for over a decade, collected thousands in tax breaks while erasing me from their will, and that's fraud, medical exploitation of a dependent, the kind of thing the IRS doesn't play about. I took all of it, the diary, the medical records, the tax documents, to Miss Parker at the Cochran firm, and she looked at me with something like respect and said, "Baby, you didn't just bring me a case, you brought me a racketeering charge. We filed everything, civil suit for the estate, criminal referral for the tax fraud, and a formal complaint to the Georgia Medical Board about Uncle Dean's steroids going missing the same year I got sick, because if I was going down this road I was burning every bridge they thought would hold them." The settlement came 35 days later, not just 50-50 on the estate but retroactive damages, a public statement from Harper acknowledging her childhood mistake, and Mama and Daddy's resignation from the church board because you can't be a deacon when the IRS is investigating your finances. I took that money and built something they could never touch, the Imani Brooks Foundation, But I also did something petty and perfect. I bought the building next to Daddy's commercial real estate office and turned it into a free legal clinic for families dealing with medical debt. So every single day he'd have to look out his window and see my name in bigger letters than his. A constant reminder that the burden he tried to bury became the legacy he'd never escape. And honestly, that felt better than any apology ever could. If this story made you stop and think, go ahead and subscribe, and leave a comment telling me where you're locked in from. I read them all because I want to know you're there. Your comment might be the lifeline for someone else who thinks they're the only one going through it. We're all just trying to make it through. And sharing our truth is how we ensure no one gets left behind. Stay sharp, listen to your gut, and never forget that the choices you make today define your tomorrow. You feel me on that?